New Zealand, I didn't expect you guys to lose this badly. 190 runs. I understand that, of course, you essentially go down fighting, but that's not a way to lose a cricket match. My name's Avnish Hegde, and of course, it's just two. It takes two to tango. It takes one day, of course, with the whole thing, but it takes two to tango. Gurkirat and Avnish, the best pair that anyone can ask for on cricket.com, really. It's cricket.com royalty today. Okay, enough of me and my fluff. Gurkirat,
You know,
I mean,
the problem is if only two of us are together on the show, we may, just have a half an hour show and not talk cricket at all.
yeah,
We
we
might
we
just,
can we can drive this conversation any way which we want for sure. By the way, props to my friend Akshay Kumar Swami, who's of course put out the fourth episode of Game Nights. Go check that out. It's a fascinating one. I just get past GNT, not drink, but the person indeed. Okay, enough of those stupid jokes. Gurki, what did you make of the Pune post mortem right now? Because it was a shit show, man. Was expecting way better.
yeah, New Zealand have been hit where they would have been hit given. See, it's something that we brought up in the very first game itself, where they went in with three full bowlers and rest of them were part timers. Today they had four proper bowlers and everyone else was a part timer. Did not help that Henry got injured, and you'll have to give credit to the pair of QDK and RVD, because I thought Santner was bowling well. Santner ended up with 58 in his 10 overs, and he was only hit for three boundaries in those 10 overs. And out of those 10 overs, he bowled last two in the two of his overs in the last 10 when Miller had just come on the crease. So he bowled well, but South Africa knew which bowlers they could attack. They've been setting up in a manner that they will score more than 100 runs in the last 10, especially while batting first, barring that game against Australia where they still got 80 runs, which I feel is sort of an average given how teams have not been able to maximize the last, and they've been doing it very well. So yeah, South Africa were clinical with the bat, and then with the ball, they really did not give New Zealand a chance. Jansen has been picking wickets for fun in the power play, got able support from Coetzee, and then Rabada came in, and I felt that New Zealand could have probably revisited their strategy once Latham was dismissed. You really wanted a partnership from Mitchell and Phillips so that they could, lose by a lesser margin or get closer to the game. But then, Maharaj also came in, and probably I think Maharaj also took a leaf out of the book of Santner, because the wicket that he got off Mitchell, he really floated it up and bowled really slow. So yeah, hardly anything for New Zealand barring that last wicket partnership that just helped them not really get so far. It's still a big loss, but they've still scored some runs which might come in handy later on when the positions for the semi-finalists would get decided. But one other thing that really made a difference was, I thought, with the dew coming in, the pitch quickened up, and with that you could see how Jansen was getting a little bit of extra bounce, Coetzee was getting that little bit of extra bounce, and so did Rabada. So a lot of things are working out very well for South Africa on that front.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Proteas and how they've just set a template, which is batting first and then batting teams out of the bloody game, which is mad. Babar Apte, it's good to see you. Aap kuch bol sakte hai kya apun? And yeah, of course, it's your space. All you people have your say in the comments, and we'll of course take them. Crazy Nix is not there with us in flesh because of certain personal commitments, but we'll cut him some slack because he's one professional dude indeed. Kudrat Nizam already working for Pakistan. Just by the way, with New Zealand losing right now, is there a glimmer of hope across the nation? Because I'm thinking Pakistan fans are still doing the math, bringing out calculators just like RCB fans are during the IPL.
It's good that you brought in the RCB angle and you did not allow me to.
Before you shoot your shots, I would self fire.
Yeah, there's still hope, but see, Pakistan still have to win two games, one versus New Zealand and the other versus England, and New Zealand also have two games in hand. There's one versus Pakistan, and who else do they play? They've one more game
Sri
remaining. I'm
Lanka.
forgetting. Yeah, Sri Lanka. So yeah, and those both the matches will happen at Bangalore. I think New Zealand in this World Cup has have been a good example of why probably ICC need to increase the squad limit. They've been unfortunate with injuries, starting with Kane. Saudi was also not available for the first few games. Then Lockie got injured, and today, Matt Henry got injured in the game itself. So two of those injuries have come in the game, and they've hurt them. Last game they had Glenn Phillips turning up with the ball, but you cannot really rely so much on Nisham, wherein he has to come and bowl in the end overs. And today also Phillips bowled one over, in the last five, I think, or it was in the last six, where Miller hit him for a couple of sixes. So, yeah, probably ICC need to relook at this squad limit of 15. And maybe teams also need to consider that do they really want to carry players who are already carrying an injury into the squad? Because Williamson was carrying an injury into the squad. He got fit but got injured once again in that Bangladesh game. Tim Saudi also wasn't well. So New Zealand have not had the rub of the green in that sense. They've had players getting injured. So let's see what is in store for New Zealand in terms of having those replacements. Do they wait for those replacements? Because I felt that maybe if Lockie was there today, had he bowled the way he bowled versus India, uh, who knows, with that extra bounce, or the uneven bounce which was there in the first half, maybe he would have done something. But at this rate, it is impossible for New Zealand to not bring in Ish Sodhi, and it may not be the worst thing to happen, given their next game is versus Pakistan, who've not been very good versus Spain either.
But
They've
do you agree with open book here? Because he goes on to say New Zealand Pakistan in the virtual quarterfinal, but New Zealand still hold the advantage even if those lose to Pak since they're playing Sri Lanka, and I feel England will beat Pakistan. I mean, could go pear shaped for New Zealand. I mean, you look at how they've kind of performed, and it makes you think about Noodle Hack's question, Gurkirat. I mean, they got the job done early on in the tournament, albeit with those lesser teams, with all due respect. And then India lost to them, Australia lost to them, and they've lost to South Africa tonight. Not just lost, but they've got absolutely humiliated. So does this tell you a little bit more about the chinks in the armor for the Kiwis?
See, there were some chinks already. You felt that maybe the batting somewhere lacks firepower. Uh, you felt that their bowling will probably not be as effective because they struggle bowling at the death. Lockie Ferguson has been inconsistent, so you felt that they probably only had three reliable bowlers in Bolt, Henry, and Shatner. And with Bolt not getting wickets with the new ball, their problems have only accentuated to some extent. So there is that. And Nikhil and I both did not have New Zealand in our top four, if you remember. We had England, but so we are definitely getting one wrong for sure. Somesh had New Zealand. So see, you have to give them credit that when they did not lose to teams who were ranked below them, so they at least did that part right. These were going to be tough fixtures. They ran India close. They probably, of all the games that India have played so far, maybe they were ran close by New Zealand the most. So it's just that they've not been able to grab onto their opportunities. They dropped a few versus Australia. Today also they dropped a couple, and now the problem is that Devon Conway has not scored runs post that first game. I think he scored around 120 runs in the six games, and he scored more in that one game versus England, where he scored that 152. Tom Latham's also not being consistent. See, Mitchell has scored runs, Phillips has scored runs, Ravindra has scored runs, but you need someone else to step up on one day or the other. You cannot really rely on, okay, Ravindra will score runs, Mitchell will score runs, and then Phillips will come in. Again, with Kane getting ruled out, it doesn't help them that Will Young has had one good innings, you could say, against Afghanistan. So a lot of things have not helped them with the injuries, and then those players who you expect to step up, it's something that we discussed in the preview, that in the absence of Kane, you would need Conway to probably play the anchor. That has not happened. If Conway doesn't, come and play the anchor, you would want Latham to play that role. But that not happening has really hamstrung them to some extent.
Indeed. Now, if I just look back at the match summary, guys, and just to give you guys a clearer picture of how it all went down in Pune today, as you can see, South Africa, do not rub your eyes because they won by 190 runs. And it was pretty much pear shaped with regards to how South Africa, beg your pardon, how it went for New Zealand. Right after they won the toss, nothing really clicked for them. Their ground fielding was all right, but they put a couple of sharp chances down. And like Gurkirat said earlier, Glenn Phillips really kind of saving New Zealand's bacon in the end, because who knows how much net run rate can affect them indeed. We'll, of course, address some questions right now, but meanwhile, we have to, of course, discuss, wait for it, the top performer, and no prizes for guessing who that is. Top performer was my X factor. I would like to say that. Rassie van der Dusen. I just said, look, he'll click. I know I said Latham will click too, and he got egg on his face. But let's, of course, reflect that particular knock from...
Avnish, I think Avnish is... Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is it better now? I think it's better now. Or is it just me? Anyway, top performer, Rassie van der Dusen, absolutely smoking it to all parts of the MCA Stadium. And it was a lot to like out there because he came in when I think they were 1 down for 30 odd, but then he managed to kind of...
I can hear you. Your voice got cut in between.
Okay, no problem. I think my internet is fine. But look, just talking about Rassie van der Dusen, how much did he impress you? Because so far in the tournament, we've been talking about De Kock, who was brilliant again today, Markram, Klaasen, and to some extent even Marco Jansen. But, I mean, Rassie van der Dusen is also a brilliant one-day international player, right?
Yeah, I mean, his number speaks for himself. I felt that in this tournament, he was getting a few starts but not converting them. He was getting out to spin. We discussed this in the preview. Today, I felt he really accelerated well from 90s to get to 133, scored a lot of boundaries then. But I felt uh, he played a lot of dot balls somewhere in between, because going into the last 10, they still not had achieved a run rate of 6. So probably you felt that could have happened because the non-boundary strike rate was lower. Around when he was around 90, he had some 40 runs through boundaries, and he had really taken a lot of balls to score the remaining runs. So with Quinton de Kock being the kind of player who anyway relies on boundaries a lot, you expect Van der Dusen, who's supposed to play an anchor, to be better at strike rotation. It was a very good innings, make no mistake about it. And his innings is important. I mean, we will see some numbers wherein South Africa will not have the best run rate in the first 10. South Africa did not score 100 in the first 20 overs today, but that is something that allows them to go big in the last 10 or 15 or 20 overs. Today they scored more than 200 runs in the last 20 overs.
Indeed, for sure. I know there's a little bit of an echo from your end, but meanwhile, we'll use this opportunity to, of course, show you some brilliant stats on cricket.com. And it makes you think about all the ones trickling out of this particular contest. And I'll reflect them in that on the screen for you if I can. Because, where is it? Okay, I don't know why it's not happening. But basically, essentially there we go. Most wickets for South Africa in a World Cup edition. Marco Jansen is on 16, and he could break Lance Cruz's record of 1999. And then, of course, you look at South Africa and how they've been batting so well up front, especially in the first innings, and getting all their wins like that. They haven't lost a single game in regards to this year. I think they've just lost one game to Australia, beg your pardon. And not to forget, this is also the biggest win for South Africa against New Zealand in ODIs, surpassing the 159 run victory, I should say, at Wellington in 2017. And this is also the first time South Africa beaten New Zealand in a one-day International Cup match in the last 6 attempts since the 1999 edition. So there's lots to love in terms of the stats and what's not to love about that, especially about cricket.com. Right, let's, of course, take some questions right now. But I have to finish up by just asking Gurkirat the absolutely redundant question, which is our next segment. You guessed it, the turning point. I'm pulling my hair out, thinking to myself, why the hell do we have to subject ourselves to certain segments when it's been an absolute one-sided road contest or whatever you want to call it? Where was the turning point? Was that as simple as a toss from Tom Latham, they should have batted first, man. I feel. I know it's easier to say in hindsight, but maybe, or do you disagree?
Uh, Toss, not really, because we discussed how the South African bowling attack is vulnerable to giving runs to the bottom half. And see, if anything, I felt that the pitch got more pace and more bounce. I mean, if you could have really played out, or adjusted to the lengths that South African bowlers were bowling, there were runs to be scored. Uh, something which Glenn Phillips showed you. I feel just South Africa consolidating very well in that 21 to 30 over bracket, because they were around 93 for one at the end of 20 overs, and by the end of 30 overs they were I think around 155, which really set them up to go for it. And you would have to say that maybe somewhere Henry getting injured played a part, because that left Latham with only three proper bowlers, which was uh, which was Bolt, Saudi, and Santner. And once both QDK and RVD decided that they really did not want to take a lot of risks versus Santner, uh, they just needed some mistakes to happen from somewhere, and that did not happen. So probably those 10 over period from overs 21 to 30 uh, was the turning point, I feel, because from there New Zealand never got ahead in the game, because around the 20 over mark you felt New Zealand still had a chance to restrict South Africa, but that did not happen. I think blaming it on the toss is not fair, because see, toss is one aspect of it. You still have 100 overs of game to be played, and in this World Cup we have seen teams win the toss, lose. So it's been a fairly agnostic World Cup in terms of whether you want to bat first or chase. So I think just putting it on the toss is too simplistic. You just have to say that 10 over period and a lot of consolidation for South Africa whenever they've batted first has happened in that period. They've looked to keep wickets in the first 20, then just up the gears, and come the last 15, last 20, they've just went hammer and tong. So I feel that is the period where New Zealand just failed to pick wickets, is, or maybe you could say that South African batters were good enough to not give Santner an opening, was probably the turning point.
Gurkirat, my mind automatically goes to Sunday, man. India, South Africa, because you mentioned it in the preview as well. Kolkata, it's probably more of a chasing sort of venue, and given the lightning outfield and all of those things that you touched upon. But Mehul, I'm guessing, speaks from an Indian fan lens. We'll have to bat first against South Africa and post close to 320. Now, what do you do in Kolkata? I just want to fast forward a little bit here. You're Rohit Sharma, you win the toss. Would you chase, or would you bat first just because it's South Africa? Look what they've done. They're just manhandling teams when they're batting first. So would you go against them and make a trend? And we have a special guest, which I'll, of course, show you. Oh, he's back. He's back. Nix, I'll get your thoughts in just a bit, but Gukia, just answer that. What do we do against them, South Africa, when we talk about India at Kolkata?
See, a lot is going to depend upon what the pitch is. If you feel the pitch is somewhat like the first game between Bangladesh and Netherlands, bat first. But if it is what it was in the last game between Bangladesh and Pakistan, not a bad option to chase. And you'll probably, I believe India would probably reach Kolkata by Friday after playing the game tomorrow, which is versus Sri Lanka. Which it's hilarious. I feel to some extent that a lot of Indian fans are taking that game for granted. We shouldn't do that. Cricket is a very funny game and a great leveler, that if you start taking things for granted, they do not fall into place. And I think Nikhil has stressed upon enough when it comes to England. But coming to your question, I think they'll probably reach there by Friday and Saturday. They'll probably have a word with the groundsmen curators that at what time is the dew setting in. What is very important to note when you play in Kolkata is that the sunset is early. It's not the same when you're playing in an Ahmedabad or some other city. So probably if the sunset is around 5:30, then you could expect that you to come in by 6:30 or 7, which is around the time. 6:30 is by when you really start the second inning. So a lot is going to depend upon how they read the conditions and then go about it. And Kolkata has been a venue where it's been difficult to defend totals. And so it won't be the worst thing if you could go without the toss. South Africa saying that okay, we want to bat first. India being comfortable with chasing. So let's see. But I anyway don't think it's a good strategy to do something so that you take because it's not opposition strength. If the conditions dictate that you should bat first or you should chase, then you should do that regardless of what the opposition has been successful in doing, because at the end of the day you still have to play the game in a way which is supported by the conditions and not play against the conditions. So I just, and I said it earlier as well, I think a lot of us are probably reading too much into the fact that okay, that they are batting first and hence their bowl. I still believe a lot of South Africa's bowling numbers are a direct consequence of their batters doing so well that the scoreboard pressure is coming into it, and their bowlers are just having a huge margin in terms of bowling to the opposition and then getting wickets. So uh, just play the conditions rather than thinking about what is the opposition strength.
Play the opposition, man. Rohit Sharma should literally put South Africa into bat, let them score 350, and then we have the king, we have the hitman, we have Surya, we have, I don't know, I'm just talking like an Indian fan. But look, Nikhil Popat, you've been waiting patiently. First and foremost, how was dinner? Because your South African team just ate humble pie.
South African team
Sachin,
ate something by he's
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, my bad. I got that completely
you
messed
are
up.
wearing black and having blues.
You got that right. You got that right. Next, what did you make of it, man? 190 runs. Did you envisage that at the start of the day?
No, if not, then I would have been here for the review right from the start. But I expected this to be a far closer game. Uh, I've been genuinely disappointed with the way New Zealand had at times shown up against better sides, not wanting to go any other ways, but they are very good or probably just good enough to take care of the opposition on their given day. But I do agree with Paji where he said that Henry's absence probably cost them, and there was time in the first innings where we felt that South Africa may not end up with what they did eventually, and that's where Paji touched upon the point about not having enough bowlers to bowl in the end, and sometimes Phillips has worked, but I'm still surprised they did not go to Daryl Mitchell, and he's bowled regularly for New Zealand and for other franchises. So that is also somewhere I feel New Zealand will have to dig deep. Uh, Whether they want to call in reserves or not, it's completely their call. But I felt they probably considered 40, 50 too many. And in the chase, as Pazi said, as you've seen in all the chases so far, you have to not lose wickets in clumps in the start, and that is what is happening for most sides against South Africa. That you have Jansen taking the too early, and that is just then setting the tone for the entire bowling lineup to bowl wherever they want to. So, because this is so far only in one game, South Africa had needed the sixth bowler, and that too also because they wanted to bowl Makram. So I think teams haven't tested South Africa enough in terms of that. But as Padi said, the batting has set them up. And the same way for New Zealand, I think South Africa did that well in terms of they attack Rachit Ravindra. He only bowled 2 overs. So that means he has to go and look for more options. So as Padi said, South Africa played the conditions better, though we all have our doubts on the dot ball percentage for RVD and how he eventually got to that ton. But see, that is what ODIs are showing, that there are phases that if you are able to make up for it, it looks fine. You won by over 150 runs. It is not going to matter at the end of the day. But against tougher sides, against tougher opponents, they'll probably catch on to it. Or if you get out at that point of time, it might be troublesome. So I think this was as good as it get for as good as it can get for South Africa. Get a good score. This is the template. So I don't think they would be too worried. And again, Quinton's form is something to take home.
Indeed. Kushal
yeah
Shah,
just
going on
just
to
on
say,
Quinton.
one second, one second. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. Hold on, hold on. I'm not high for sure. I really want to be at this point in time, but the chaotic energy will always remain. And Gurpreet, there's another question from Chuchant, which I definitely want to ask you. But before that, where's that Chuchant question gone? Where is it? Yeah, I mean, he's hashtagged me, so I can't really ignore him. And we'll get to Paji's thoughts about the SC middle order, but really quickly, because look, New Zealand, if we're all TV cricket fans right now, would you have your balls in your mouth looking at the last two games, looking at the last two oppositions, and looking at the similar venue in Bangalore, are New Zealand still in firm control of the semi-finals? Gurkirat and then Knicks.
Firm control, no. They have their they the good thing is they have their fortunes in their own hand. So you'd say between the three teams that would be vying for that fourth spot, uh, I'm assuming here that Australia get past England on Saturday. I'm assuming that because if Australia don't get past England on Saturday, then Australia are also not secure yet. So there's that. uh, New Zealand still have their fate in their own hands. You on paper you expect them to beat Sri Lanka and Pakistan both, especially given where they are playing, because you'd really hope that they get one of the bowlers fit, or if not, bring in Ish Sodhi. I mean, regardless of what the pitch is, regardless of what, even if it's a flat pitch which doesn't really have much for spinners, you'd still expect Sodhi to do better than bowling Nisham, or trying to get overs out of Glenn Phillips, or trying to get overs out of Rachin Ravindra, because it is something that we had touched upon in the first game. What happened in that game was Bolt and Henry both struck with wickets at crucial times. What happened today could have really happened in Ahmedabad had Henry not got Butler at the time which he did, because Butler was batting beautifully that day. So they really need to get one proper bowler in somewhere, because this is not becoming sustainable right now. Saudi, I'm not sure how much value can he add, because he's not going to get the new ball if there is Matt Henry, if he's fit, because you have three similar bowlers in a kind. If Matt Henry is not there, maybe then you can play Saudi and ask him to probably extract whatever movement there is on offer in the first 10 and see how it goes. But otherwise, there's a lot of similarity in terms of the strength that Bolt, Henry and Saudi have. There is not a major differential in pace. There's not a
So,
major differential in
so
the
you,
lengths that they
you
go.
you think they can get the job done then against Sri Lanka and Pakistan? Do you think there won't
They
be any
should.
hiccups
You
there?
should still hope that they can get the job done. And again, they've lost to three teams who I don't think on paper were inferior to them. They've
Agreed.
lost to three teams who on paper were also superior to them. So it can happen. It's just that we are looking too much into this because it has happened in a streak. They had four games against oppositions who were on paper inferior to them. They beat them. Everyone thought, okay, they are on a roll. But now that tough games have happened, maybe if these games were structured in a way that they had won two, lost one, won again, lost one again, then maybe we'd have felt no, they'll get through. It's just that we think maybe the momentum could kick in and that streak could take things away from them, because Pakistan also have a lot of their troubles. It's not that Pakistan are more sorted than New Zealand. They are not. Uh, Neither do I feel Sri Lanka is sorted, because very. I mean, Tikshana struggled for wickets, which who you felt would be their main guy once Hasaranga was ruled out. So you'd still expect them to win those two games, and probably be there. And even if not, at this point of time, to expect Pakistan to beat both New Zealand and England is not as straightforward. Like I said, they also have their own issues, so they're still within a fair chance to qualify.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just hoping from an Afghanistan lens they get through to the back door. Next, talk to me about the points table right now and allude to what Gurkirat's saying, because where are the possible hiccups for New Zealand right now? Let's just sort that out, because ultimately I'm looking at it and I know Afghanistan, they have Australia left and they play Netherlands, is it in Lucknow?
Yeah,
Next.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they can go to 8 points before they face Australia, and that's going to be from Mumbai. So that'll be something to watch out for. But New Zealand, like I asked you earlier, are they safe or do they still have a couple of things to get right?
Yeah, I think they have more than a couple of things to get right. Again, the problem here for me with New Zealand is it's just been the same guys who they've relied on to come good.
Hmm.
I think Paji touched upon Conway's form dipping off. Latham hasn't had any good score. Uh, you've seen Daryl Mitchell and Rachin Ravindran being the only guys who've
One
got
good score for
consistent.
Latham, I think.
But then that also it came late, and I felt there were chances there.
Yeah.
But still, he hasn't looked in good touch. So I'm not looking at consistent scores, but looking in good touch is something where I feel Latham has been found short, and Williams has got too many starts. But I feel he's been getting out the same way. He got out the same way versus India, got out the same way in the last game, got out the same way today as well. Top of off, nicking off to slip. So there are areas. If I'm Pakistan, if I am the next team that they are playing, Sri Lanka, there is enough for me to work with. So they'll probably rely on the bowling again to set the game up for them. And if there is no Henry, I think it will again put a lot of pressure on Bolt and Santner only because Ravindra is not taking wickets. So you suddenly see the point that we often make about New Zealand being very good as a sum, that sum suddenly isn't looking that great. So they'll need Conway to step up to put up a big score because once that guy scores, everything seems very vanilla for them because everything is then falling into place. People are able to bat at their spots and at their pace. So you expect them to get the job done, but I feel Bangalore game could be tricky if the pitch is in flat because Sri Lanka can surprise how they did with England. So I don't think they can take that game lightly as well. Of course, they won't take it lightly, but that game it'll eventually build up to a nice finisher for New Zealand Pakistan. It could potentially be a virtual knockout. Who knows?
Indeed. Let's just end the show with, of course, talking about South Africa and their road ahead because, of course, we've been alluding to that massive flash against India at Kolkata. And, of course, you can catch the cricket.com coverage of it on Sunday. And then they finish off their campaign, at least the group stage, that is, against Afghanistan in Ahmedabad on the 10th of November. And there's a very good question from Chuchad. He wanted to pick your mind, Gurkirat, about South Africa's batting, but he also wants to ask you guys about Bavuma's captaincy. I remember vice versa. We were actually heaping a lot of praise for Tom Latham and how he was getting it tactically right in the first 4 games, and then that's been a little bit exposed. But Bavuma, how do you rate him? And can he become the first ever South African captain to make them enter a final? That'll be something in his resume.
See, I've had admiration for Bavuma, the leader, since the 2021 World T20 because there was this game which QDK did not play because he did not want to take the knee. I think it was against West Indies, and Bavuma was there in the press conference and he was asked a lot of tough questions, and I felt just the way he managed the whole thing. He provided a very good perspective to all the viewpoints. I felt that is something that you need from a leader because you have to understand that from the background that he comes and the the history of the country is such that attending that press conference could become a very heated issue. There's a lot of pressure. It's just not related to cricket. Then there's a lot more pressure, and I felt he really managed the whole thing very well. On the tactics front, I found him to be okay. We felt that in that one game that happened versus Netherlands, maybe he could have also stepped in and asked the bowlers that what were they doing, where they were just throwing those slower ones and getting smacked. But largely, you would have to say he's done a decent job so far. At the same time, you cannot say that okay, he's been tested as a captain because South Africa have got into such good positions that you've really not needed a captain to bring in the changes because see
Did he
by
get it
the
wrong
by,
against the Netherlands, sorry, or was it just a flash in the pan?
no as a captain you're supposed to step in when you see your bowlers are making the same mistake, bowling slower ones and getting smacked, and bring in some changes and see what could have been done. So yeah, that is where you'll have to give him a part of the blame, that yeah, probably he needed to step in, but otherwise I've found him to be a decent captain. He hasn't done something which make you feel like, oh, these are the basics being done wrong. So and
Okay.
I've liked him as a captain, like I said, since that World T20 because South Africa they had won 4 matches that just lost out on the semi-final spot due to net run rate in that World T20. So I've liked him even though there are enough valid questions about his place in the T20 side as a batter, but as a leader and as a captain, I feel he's more than decent enough.
Okay, Lord Temba. He is, of course, known as. Avnish Man asked my previous question to the panel, please. Where is it? Where is it? Okay, here we go, Neural Hacks. Like this particular video, all of you guys, not just Neural Hacks, Chuchant, Introspect, Sanjay Papagiri, Sports Fan. Sorry if I'm missing names, but all the regular cool cats in the comments, Introspect as well. Who have I got? I mean, there are more questions coming through right now. But Nick, you can take this one. What are your thoughts about this? Because he goes on to say, I had India, South Africa, Australia, and England. Now that England are not there, I want Afghanistan because I really feel they deserve a spot. The most it will slightly change the landscape of cricket, also make the cup semis more serious. Thoughts?
No, I think everybody would love to have Afghanistan. Uh, it may come at whoever spot who's not India and South Africa. I'm cool because I'm making them play the final. So, but you need that because you need that from the point of view that they are an improved side, and that is what you want to see at every World Cup. To go from a World Cup where you haven't won a single game to then be part of a top four will tell you a lot about how much they have come through as a side. And the biggest positive for me for Afghanistan this year has been the different performers. It's not the same names every game. It is not only Mujib, Rashid, and Nabi. There are other names who have come to the fore, and that will really make it for a very good narrative and also for the game, right? You want to see more teams coming up and stepping and not waiting like Bangladesh. Once for some World Cup they'll turn up and win 5-6 games. So that is what you want to see. They have a game against Australia, and I can't wait to banter Anirudh if Rashid actually goes on to take 5 because we visualize that happening. It's also in Wankhede, so even more things stacked against them. But again, we are not disrespecting anyone here. We just want the game to grow. So yeah, if they are able to make through, why not?
Man, Afghanistan, that'll be some story indeed. Introspect has one more comment and then we'll finish up, boys. And it's a general one at large. Teams downplaying existing ODIs are the ones who become paupers this World Cup. I don't know if that's just a dig towards England, but maybe we can
There's
classify
only been
Pakistan.
one actually. There's only been one actually.
Pakistan bhi, bhai. They only care about T20 cricket and PSL and sacking people.
I think
Sorry.
their problem is that they don't play they
Strong
don't
side.
play enough quality bilateral ODIs. They play ODIs, but they don't play enough quality bilateral ODIs because see, one thing that you'll have to give them credit for is that they've played against the smaller teams a lot. They've played with Netherlands, they toured Netherlands, they've toured Zimbabwe. So that is something that you have to give them credit for, but they really don't play a lot of quality bilaterals. And the other thing is when they are playing the smaller teams, they are not ready to risk sending newbies. I mean, they sent Shaheen and Naseem. They sent their full strength squad to play the series versus Netherlands. So from where will you develop your new players coming into the World Cup? If you look at it, Saud Shakil and Abdullah Shafiq have not played more than 10 ODIs. So you are it's one thing that they have scored runs, they've had decent outings, but were you really setting them up for a good World Cup, or were you setting them up to fail?
They were
So
setting them up for musical chairs, bro.
that is the thing with most you could say subcontinent teams these days. But you just have to see what is the vision. A lot of things, a lot of teams struggles in this World Cup will eventually come down to what has been their vision. Has the vision been short term or has the vision been long term? So short term teams, teams with short term visions have been really found out, and it's probably the worst stage to get exposed, because you expect teams to do well. There are eyeballs even on neutral games. So yeah, there's that. Just before you end, I wanted to say something about QDK. QDK, in every game that he's batting, I know his last World Cup, but just the way he's batting, he's reminded me of that scene from Bhag Milkha Bhag, the end scene where he tells them ki ये आपका last race हो सकती है. So you could say like he's also batting like every game is his last game, because today the way he started, it wasn't his usual way. Like, he took time. You feel if he's not got off the start blocks earlier, he could really struggle. He was some around 16 17 in first 30, and then started to found those boundaries. And Nikhil probably has something to add.
I'm just not sure of something that just struck me. He's scored century in every ground that he's played for in the IPL. It just
That's not
struck me
really
right
true.
now.
Yeah,
He did
I remember
it
he's
in
got
Delhi,
one in the Chinnaswamy, he's got one in Delhi, he's got one in Hyderabad,
Mumbai.
he's got one in Mumbai. Maybe
No, but
CS.
South Africa have not played at Chinnaswamy.
No, as in like
Really,
in the sense IPL team.
IPL teams.
No, but I think Nikhil's talking about the
400
grounds that he.
this year. He's got one at Delhi. He's got
Yeah,
one at Wankhede.
yeah,
Uh, he got
Lucknow.
one. In
Yep.
Lucknow,
in
he's played
Lucknow
at
versus Australia and on in Pune. But
Pune.
I don't think he's played for Pune.
May not have played for Pune. But maybe just like
But
I don't know
but
why I'm imagining him with a
but
flamboyant
I
face.
but I think that he probably got 100 while playing for Delhi in Pune, or
I
maybe it
think
was
he's
for RCB.
yeah, it maybe it was some
No,
other.
bro, I would have remembered that if it was RCB for sure. By the way, just on Quinton, guys, to finish up this and the review, of course, can he break Sachin Tendulkar's 673 in 2003? Because he's 500 and what is it right now? He's 545 runs in 7 innings like a mad mofo. He needs 228 if my math serves me right. And he could probably get 3 by
How is
3
it
carry.
228? How is it
128,
228 if he's
128,
at
128, 128. Sorry, my bad, 128.
The match
So,
is not serving today. Nothing is serving today.
nothing is serving right, man. Maybe my tummy's rumbling over there. But okay, fine. Can he get past Sachin's record? He can, right? Essentially, should.
672.
673, yeah.
672 पे खत्म होगा. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, he can get
a
one.
lot of players have come close, and whenever the talk has been about they've not been able to. But I personally think the way he's batting and the way things are going for South Africa, they wouldn't really care if he uh,
Yeah, of course.
gets that or not, because he really seems to be on a probably just wants to win that World Cup desperately for South Africa and then go out, because like I said, he's reminding me of that expression or that dialogue from Bhag Milkha Bhag, where he says मैं भागूंगा भी ऐसी जैसे मेरी last race है. So he's really batting like that probably every game is his last. So
That's insane. I mean,
I don't think the record will be even on his mind.
Of course.
yeah, just the way he was going about his business, like you said earlier, at the start of his innings, and then it just gave you an impression that he wanted to throw his wicket away, but then he got to that 114, and God bless him and South Africa, and God bless Nikhil Popa, because he's going for an India-South Africa final. He's getting that right. I won the X Factors, by the way. I know I broke that to you when you were at dinner. It's
Cheers.
okay. Jansen is
My X Factor was doing well, but found a way to get out. Bavuma started off well once again, but found a way to get out.
Got to good day.
Indeed. Guys, thank you so much. It should be an absolute rip roarer tomorrow. India, Sri Lanka. I'm just going to peep out of my balcony to see if I can see any Indian players. I can see Siraj. Hello, Siraj. Don't be rested, because we need another 6 for coming. I need an early finish tomorrow because it's a maximum city and I want to enjoy the city as maximum as possible. That's all we have time for. Thanks for watching this elongated review. We apologize, but we've had a ton of fun doing it. And of course, like this video. It's me saying goodbye, tired and high, as you guys clearly think. See you soon.